Akachi! Kobayashi!
Miss?
Miss Emily?
Is there any reason you've chased after us?
Akachi and Kobayashi were walking alongside the others, but they stopped once I called out to them. Am I correct in assuming that you two were the ones who first reported that smuggler ship?
What makes you think that?
From how I saw it, it was like you expected the yard to arrive. Then there's how we first met. Your companions on the ship were still unloading cargo at the time, but you weren't. You were doing so moments before, so I doubt you didn't care for the labor. That's why it struck me as odd. The only plausible answer is that you two were keeping watch.
Well, what a clever deduction. You're like a real detective, Emily.
By chance, there happened to be an article about them in the English newspaper I was reading on the boat here. It mentioned that their members sport a tattoo resembling a snake on the back of their hands.
I was lost as ever when Akachi asked to borrow my telescope after we'd landed. He didn't have any reason to look for land in the distance, so I thought he'd gone nuts from exhaustion.
That's rather unkind of you to think. I simply found the crewmen of the ship next to ours peculiar in their behavior. They were only waiting to leave port, and yet they were much too wary, as if they were ready for battle at any moment. After the backs of their hands confirmed my theory, I asked the person who disembarked first for the port entry procedures to report them.
And you did that immediately? I was moved. Between his powers of observation and quick thinking, why, he was the one who made for quite the detective. They ought to have earned praise for their good deeds, but those policemen only hurled abuse. How can that be right? Oh, as though it ever could be right. If it's no trouble, I should like to speak intimately. I'm honored you came all the way here from Japan. Welcome to England. I presented the water and custard tart Pendleton had given me that morning to them. Aw, she gave up her sweets to these two. You two have received no higher honor, let me tell you. I had been keeping my custard tart aside to eat later. It was always a treat to have. I'd been looking forward to eating it all day. How queer that something I would have delighted in having for myself still felt an inadequate offering. Rather than take it, however, the two scrutinized the gift as though it were absolutely foreign to them. Because it was.
Is this edible?
Oh! It's called a custard tart. They're deliciously sweet desserts.
It's sweet!
Kobayashi alighted to the extent that his eyes may as well have been glittering with stars.
You don't mind if we eat this?
In fact, it would please me very much if you did.
Kobayashi, it's unbecoming for a man to be so enthused with sweet...
I get first bite!
Never mind.
The taste is amazing, Emily! You're right that it's sweet, but it's not the same type of sweet you get from Monica.
It was prepared by my family's butler. Don't expect to find many in London that are quite so perfect.
Really? And you still let us have it? Thank you!
Akachi had been watching us with a somewhat dubious expression before he spoke up.
When I chose to set sail for this foreign land, I was prepared for how I would likely be treated here. After all, our nation's position is rather perilous. One wrong move, and we could become yet another colony for the West. If I'm honest, the treatment we received earlier came as no surprise to me.
Akachi.
What has come as a surprise, however, is meeting someone like you so soon after our arrival. The journey here was an ordeal from start to finish, but I count myself fortunate for being able to meet you at the end of it.
Dang. Oh, my heart. Sanan Jr., my heart. For the first time, Akachi's mouth curled ever so slightly, and his eyes softened in what felt like his sincerest smile. The change was only visible for a mere moment, but I was captivated all the same. I hear you, girl. A great change will be coming to the classroom a few days after the trip. Are they going to come to school with us? I'm so excited. On the way to our classroom, I bumped into Marple along the corridor and called out to her. Excuse me, Marple? I wanted to apologize for worrying you at the port. I wasn't thinking. You did worry me, but I cannot be upset after seeing you're still in good health. That's all that matters to me. That being said, it isn't often one gets to witness you, Holmes, and Watson apologizing so desperately as a trio. Holmes especially. Watching him grovel is a treat worth savoring.
Dang.
So you're used to me and Watson apologizing. The class was thrilled to witness such a rare spectacle.
I'm pleased you all found the sight so worth seeing. Perhaps I should begin charging for the privilege in the future.
You're a funny one, Holmes. You'll never have to charge again unless you do something else that warrants an apology.
Something about hearing that from you makes my blood boil. Simmer down, then. Your grades are always so often a cut above the rest that it was a treat to see you misbehave. Your standards of normal are skewed by how often you get told off for forgetting homework and falling asleep during class. Ahem! Class, please take your seats.
Mr. Mackenzie's voice had been hoarse since the trip, likely owing to how the poor man had to shout for hours on end. His appearance was pitiable enough at the best of times, so adding that weak texture made him seem orders of magnitude more so than ever.
First, I need to introduce 2 foreign exchange students who will be joining us from today.
Yes! So excited!
Come in.
Oh! The second I saw these new students, I was almost pleasantly speechless. Oh, let me look at you guys! Ah, you look great! Look how giant Kobayashi's eyes are. They're ridiculously huge. They're bigger than mine. Akachi! Kobayashi!
So this is your class!
Lower your voice, Kobayashi.
Oh, come on. Don't pretend you're not happy to see her.
All I implied is that shouting personal matters in the classroom is inappropriate.
So you are happy.
One was naturally brimming with energy from ear to ear, whilst the other defaulted to being reserved. They couldn't have been more different.
I want you to stay quiet till I give you permission to speak, Kobayashi. Excuse the lengthy interruption, Mr. Mackenzie. Do continue.
Certainly. This is Kenichiro Ekichi and Seiji Kobayashi. They've traveled here from distant Japan.
As soon as he mentioned where they were from, the classroom erupted with curious whispering and admiring sighs.
They were to be in someone else's care for the duration of their stay, but tragically, that person passed away of illness before they could make it here.
Oh dang, really?
But in light of their achievements shortly after their arrival, our academy has chosen to take them under its wing.
So it's all come together. When we went to give our apologies to the teacher, I reported every possible detail I could recall regarding the incident with the smuggler's ship. That, of course, included Akachi and Kobayashi's involvement. I'm so pleased you took the time to find and enroll them here. Good show, Mr. Mackenzie. I always knew he was the head of our course for a reason. For a brief moment, the lanky, wearied figure of Mr. Mackenzie seemed almost dazzling. Almost.
It may take them time to adjust to a new environment and culture. Please, I ask that you do what you can to make them feel welcome. Now, there are 2 empty seats waiting for you. Sit down, gentlemen, if you would.
Before that, sir, I have a favor I wish to ask of you.
Oh? What might that be, Mr. Akachi?
Would it be too brazen to request being appointed as our class representative?
Oh my goodness. This coming from the mysterious new addition had all at attention. Holmes, could I ask you something?
No need. I know exactly what you'll say. You'd like to know if we have such a position to fill, correct?
Precisely. You read my mind.
As far as I'm aware, there was one. But, you see, the detectives course has always had its share of colorful characters, making it a nasty job to unite us as one. Anyone who's tried hasn't lasted long. In short, the position does exist, but it may as well not.
I hope that was a joke, Akachi.
Akachi's request had come when Kobayashi was ready to take his seat. For some reason unknown to the rest of us, he visibly despaired at the thought.
I would never make a joke of this. We came to English to further the development of our homeland. To that end, we must use the limited time afforded to us to learn and better ourselves as much as possible, and taking the leisure route of studying like any other student. Why, that's simply not enough. We must constantly strive to undertake greater responsibility, to achieve greater things, to expand our efforts beyond the bare minimum. It is, I declare, almost vital I assume a position of leadership.
Akachi took no notice of the astonishment from those around him. His proclamation was indeed brazen, to use his wording, but he fully intended to stand by it.
Fantastic. Oh, fantastic. This is giving everyone a fine first impression of us. I can feel the headache coming already. I understand how you are, but I don't suppose you could tone down your enthusiasm on the first day. Everyone's sure to think we're all like this.
Look at that! I've never seen such determination. Oh, but it only feels right for a man who's trekked here all the way from the Far East to be so different to the average student.
I can't remember Faber's voice. Hold on a second. It was... Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. He's the same age as us, but here he is, shouldering the future of his country like it's the natural thing to do. It's inspiring.
Ah!
Holmes! His voice carried throughout the classroom.
I've heard you are effectively the detective who represents this class, as well as that you possess a ring from Her Majesty for your abilities. As one who aspires to become a first-rate detective, it is a true privilege to meet you.
Dear me. He can't be very ordinary if he's already latched on to Holmes.
I'll say. No one close to ordinary would engage with our most baffling schoolmate.
What does that say about me?
Me? Baffling? Ha. You speak nonsense. There's nothing wrong with closely inspecting or being alert of one's surroundings. It helps me to notice evidence far more acutely than the average citizen.
And here he is with a matter-of-fact quip. These two may be quite similar, come to think of it. Holmes had earned himself a fair amount of stares right along with our foreign exchange student.
I am pleased to meet you as well, Akachi.
If I may, I want to make something very clear to you, Holmes.
Oh, dang!
Objection! I will not lose to you. You're the best here as we speak, but there will come a time when I become a first-rate detective and claim your place. Mark my words.
Oh, dang, we got a rivalry in class.
Well, you know. May I counter? If becoming a first-rate detective is your aim, then don't chase someone else's shadow to get there.
Oh, dang! Vulcan salute, Holmes!
You should follow your own path, as I do. Spend enough time musing over wins and losses, and you may become so self-involved that you lose sight of the finish line.
Is that so? Am I to interpret that a detective aims not to best others, but to be unprecedented in their own right?
Interpret my words as you wish.
I'm impressed anew. I throw down the gauntlet, and your retort is to give me advice. I see a first-rate detective must also be a first-rate British gentleman. Another lesson well learnt.
Akachi swiftly produced a notebook and began to scribble away.
It's hard to say if he's an optimist, or if he truly doesn't realize Holmes meant nothing from that.
Ha! Oh, you don't know the half of it. You won't find another man as smart as he is simple. And I do mean simple.
I wouldn't take it that far.
No, no. Listen, you can't get a recipe more basic than Akachi. The first ingredient? His studies. The second, his diplomacy. Physical training is enough to be third and fourth. Then there's the most important one of them all. His spectacles.
Why those? Oh dang, everyone with the objections.
I've never met anyone else so humorless. Absolutely not a single funny bone to be found in his body. You know what makes him smile? Work! He's a slave to productivity.
Ah, so he's too diligent.
I'm not a slave to anything, Kobayashi. And I do hope you'll excuse my borrowing your notebook.
You did? Wait! That's one of my 7 tools! You shouldn't be using it!
You should never let your guard down, not even for a moment. Let this be a lesson to further your studies.
Ah. Even across the ocean you would spring trouble on others in the name of education.
I find his devotion to bettering himself quite admirable.
Yes, but this sounds less like devotion and more like obsession. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Please let Jack wake up at this very moment and be like,
Who said my name?
And if I may, I think you're all forgetting one sorely important detail.
Marple sharply changed the subject to grab our attention and then announced in a dignified manner. Oh dang, even her!
We do have a detective without peer in our class, but it isn't Holmes. It's Emily Whiteley.
Dang, girl! Such support! I could hug you, man. Girl, I'm touched. What?
Wow!
You're right. I did forget.
You never told us you were such a legend, Emily!
She overstates my capabilities. I swear it. I'm nowhere near being without peer.
When we first met, your energy and behavior piqued my interest. Now I see how exceptionally modest you are as well. They say all that glitters is not gold, but you shimmer more with every revelation.
Oh, dang. Poetic musings. Oh, my heart. I shimmer? I fear I don't understand.
To put it more concisely, he's saying the truly capable do not flaunt their talents. They behave as I do.
As you do. Oh, I'm sure.
I'll admit that what Miss Marple says is correct, Akachi. She does occasionally possess moments of brilliance that surpass even my intellect.
Excuse me? What did you drink before coming to school today, sir?
I do stress occasional, but I have seen it happen. Would you look at that? Holmes praised someone! Reluctantly, but I heard it with my own ears.
These moments must truly be exceptional if someone such as you accepts them as brilliance. Perhaps it's a regular occurrence in a country ruled by a queen, but I'm moved by how the women here excel.
Seemingly inspired, Akachi once again began scribbling in the borrowed notebook.
This is a nation ruled by Her Majesty and filled with refined ladies and gentlemen. Would it be fair to assume this enriching lifestyle is more the rule than the exception for a young British woman?
I love that everyone is just sucking up to Emily, and poor Mr. Mackenzie is just like lost complete control of his classroom.
Quite fair. The concept of ladies first is bred into our culture. You must always extend a kind hand towards women.
Extend a kind hand.
And it's doubly important to understand how they think. We gentlemen can't very well extend our hand without knowing when to take lead, as I'm sure you realize.
Men have to understand how women think and lead the way.
And as soon as the opportunity presents itself, men have to strike with all their might. Strike! Then conquer! Man must defend his prize to the very end.
Strike, conquer, and defend. Well, well. I wasn't aware there were so many complex strategies lurking beneath the surface.
Is this still about women? Why must it be so violent?
Oh, it's absolutely complex. No man simply wants for the girl of his dreams. He puts in all the effort he can muster to win her heart.
Might I suggest we do something about those two?
I'm sure ladies first is more about putting women, well, first, and less about how to get them to fall in love with you.
Is it though?
Selecting which information is likely to be vital is an important part of being a detective, if I may add. If he can't do that, he has a long way to go.
But maybe his goal is to win the love of a beautiful young British woman. You don't know, Holmes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Ambition and enthusiasm are always two qualities I love to see in a student. Very well, Akachi. I am happy to appoint you as our new class representative. I have high hopes for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mackenzie.
What a wild day. After they had been welcomed into the class, I volunteered to show the two of them around the academy. From what I'd been told, they were to live in the boys' dormitory for the duration of their stay.
Aren't those the new foreign students? Why, yes! It's so exciting to have Orientals in attendance. The pale-haired one with the spectacles looks ever so smart, doesn't he?
I find the one with the dark hair to be the more endearing of the two.
I may well be tempted to scoop him up and take him home with me.
Kobayashi made an exerted effort to pout more with every comment overheard.
This place is full of unusual people, isn't it?
And yet, I suspect there are none among them who would want to hear as much from a foreigner.
By the way, it was a real surprise to run into you two again, and an even greater surprise to learn you both want to be detectives.
We're as surprised as you. We were at a complete loss on what to do before Mr. Mackenzie contacted us. We were told he persuaded all the high-ups here to let us enroll.
It was thanks to you, I might add. We owe you a debt of gratitude.
You don't owe me anything. The only thing I did was tell him what happened at the port. You're reaping the rewards of your own actions. Ooh, that blush, though.
I see. Thank you.
Akachi awkwardly averted his gaze. By the by, I meant to ask this before, but isn't Japan far away? What inspired you to come all the way to London?
It's very far, yes. To give you a bit of background, our motherland resumed communicating with the outside world roughly 40 years ago. Before that, the nation had been isolated, and interacting with other nations was expressly forbidden.
As Akachi explained, Kobayashi stopped surveying the area and jumped into the conversation.
One result of our isolationism was becoming painfully aware of how far behind we were once we resumed relations with other countries. This inspired Japan to rework our system into that of an industrial one, with laws based on constitutions of the West. Our justice system, which had long been unfairly weighted to suit the upper classes, was also reformed. I think.
You think rightly. I'm pleased you remembered.
How could I forget after all those lectures I sat through on the boat? Blah!
Things are yet to be perfect, of course. There is no end to the crimes taking place in the shadows. If anything, they're more horrific than they ever were before.
Akachi continued.
Engels saw the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and has been at the forefront of the modernization that has occurred ever since. My aim has been to come here, gain the means to fight against and oppose the crimes of my nation, and return home a fine detective. I should then like to continue using the abilities I've gained in service of my country.
It's the same for me. I want to become a detective like Akachi.
Have you been friends for a while then?
Not by choice, I assure you.
That's not a very nice way to speak of your ever-so-reliable assistant.
A reliable assistant proves their worth through their actions over words of self-praise. Are you aware of how much of my time I spend cleaning up after you because you keep running head first into one altercation after the next?
Don't turn this round on me. Are you aware of how much I clean up after you? Because you can't be asked to take proper care of yourself. Once something's caught your eye, even food and sleep are cast to the back of your mind. Think about the poor chap who's got to turn to violence to keep you in check.
Violence?
We have an agreement wherein if Kobayashi is able to defeat me, I will obey him. Even mounting a surprise attack is acceptable. I consider it a part of his training.
Kobayashi soured at Akachi's frankness.
It's more than that. Who can best someone who dedicates all hours of the night to training? No, I'm not training. I'm on a bloody fool's errand.
Yet another duo of detectives, but they cannot be more different to Holmes and Watson. Really? I was thinking how similar they actually are.
And I do hope I'm wrong, Akachi, but in case I'm not, please show mercy on your schoolmates as class representative. Please?
I thought you knew me better than that.
Oh, that's a relief. I had to believe that even you wouldn't go around telling people off for little things on your first day.
But of course I would. Starting off on the right foot is vitally important in these kinds of matters. Nothing good comes from pampering people.
Oh, right.
Errors must be pointed out and points of improvement plainly declared. Failing to do so would be to neither your nor the other person's benefit.
If you must, but try not to be too aggressive about it.
Akachi is an interesting one. He may have us all set to task in no time. It didn't take long for me to learn how spot on my first impression was. It was only until our next lesson together, in fact.
Watson, it's a terrible thing to forget your homework, but don't dig yourself a deeper hole by following through with such an insincere apology.
I'm sorry.
As for you, Gordon, you are here to be educated by some of this country's most brilliant. Why dress so slovenly for this honor? Sort yourself out at once.
Pardon me.
Lupin, you ought to learn to handle that ring with more care. You're a detective, it's time you were aware of it.
Of course. I'm terribly sorry. I'll take more care in the future.
Not the tiniest indiscretion gets past him. I could believe he has eyes at the back of his head.
That's enough, Akachi. How's Mr. Underwood meant to teach us anything if you spend the entire class nitpicking every little thing? You aren't helping.
I don't see how he could teach you at all when you don't even care to take out your textbook, Kobayashi.
Yes, well, I was just about to take it out before you said anything.
Laughing awkwardly, he started rooting through his bag for his textbook. Watching Akachi, I had a certain feeling about him. I mean, he's amazing, but I can't love him right now. I wasn't certain I would get on all that well with him after all. Oh, it breaks my heart to say that. It breaks my heart. He reminded me too much of Pendleton in some sense. I mean, that is actually pretty accurate. At least Akachi means well, unlike him, who took much fun in being unpleasant to me. Akachi's way of fault-finding was easier for me to swallow. Huh, how interesting. This isn't good. An uncontrollable desire to sleep had overtaken me since lunch. As the minutes passed, it became more and more difficult to fight off. My eyelids are so heavy.
And Mr. Underwood, if you have the time to gossip about you and your wife's indolence, you'd best put what little energy you have left into pointing out your students' shortcomings before carrying on with our lesson.
Oh my. What indolence? I was only describing our honeymoon.
Oh boy. Now he looks as drained of energy as Mr. Mackenzie. And that's hardly Akachi's fault. Everything he's saying is the truth. I can't disagree, but he could let us down gently. Excuse me, Emily? I can't be the only one who thinks Akachi's behavior is a bit excessive, can I? Hello? Emily? Good lord.
They let her sleep. Guys. I somehow managed to sleep the entire lesson away. Oh, drat! I can't believe I did that.
Miss Whiteley.
Akachi! That really wasn't my intention. It was too difficult to resist the temptation.
I didn't come over here to hear excuses. I came to ask you a question. Are you here with the intention to study hard and become a detective?
Of course. Although I'll admit that my catnap would suggest otherwise. I wish to become a first-rate detective. The best of the best.
Then you shouldn't have the free time for dilly-dallying whilst in class.
Yes. You're absolutely right. Indeed, I could not disagree. How could I argue with sleeping during lessons?
There's no need to be so harsh. You've done more than enough forcing your opinion down on others for one day. It's not right.
I'm not angry if that's your worry, nor am I attempting to force my opinions onto her. That being said, Miss Whiteley, do you not find your actions wasteful?
In what way?
You live in a country where a woman's position in society is formally recognized, and your talents are similarly acknowledged by your peers. Rather than try and polish those talents, you allow them to stagnate with a smile. I can hardly think of a more frustrating waste. Especially as there are many in this world who fruitlessly strive with all their heart to have their abilities recognized.
Akachi.
I'm also of the opinion that you would do well not to betray the expectations placed upon you as your queen's detective.
It's true. I couldn't agree more. Should I permit myself complacency and forgo working to better myself, where does that leave the trust Her Majesty placed in me? Akachi's chiding had spoken to me on some level, giving me a renewed feeling of motivation. Bless you, Akachi. I feel I can do just about anything now.
I'm pleased to hear that.
That's a new sight. He scolds and she thanks him.
That's why we say she's without peer. She sees things differently to others.
And as much as that pleases me, I would be remiss if I didn't express the same concerns for our other student who was sleeping.
Who? My eyes followed Akachi's stare, and at the other end of it was... Yeah, I'm like, it's gotta be Jack.
This isn't good. He set his eyes on Jack.
You're right that it's not good, but I'll admit to wanting to see how this plays out.
That boy is Jack. The way he stares out the window is quite usual for him.
That's what he wants others to think, but my eyes won't be fooled. I don't need to look at someone to know whether they're concentrating or not in class. I can sense it.
Sense it? Is that right?
This is but another reward gained from my studies.
I don't know how you can do that because I can't.
And not only did he sleep through the lesson, but he's sleeping as we speak. I've more than a few choice words for him.
I pray this doesn't get ugly, but the odds of this being a civilized conversation aren't as favorable as I'd like them to be. My eyes followed Akachi as he made his way over to Jack's desk, but this only worked to distract me from an unexpected someone barreling in my direction. Lupin, what is going on now?
Ah! Miss Whiteley, run!
By the looks of it, Lupin had collected into his hands a pile of books from his desk. After which, I could only assume he must have caught his foot on the leg of his chair, causing them to tumble graciously out of his grip and towards my head. Ah! All I could do was try to use my arms to protect myself. I braced for impact. This was certainly going to hurt. Alright, show me those ninja reflexes.
Lupin, you ought to take more care with the Academy's property.
It was thanks to Akachi's quick thinking as he grabbed my arm that I was able to escape without being hit by a single one of them.
What an awful mess I've made of things. Are you both all right?
Yes, I'm well, Lupin.
Thank you, Akachi. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't stepped in. Whilst he was still supporting me, his gaze was dropped awkwardly towards the ground.
No. This was nothing.
Akachi? He seemed to lose the will to speak mid-sentence, and I noticed his gaze was fixed unmovingly on something. Confused, I followed his line of sight to discover what had his attention. Oh! Oh no. I was at a loss for words. His hand just so happened to fall upon my bosom. Oh no. Oh no. I feel so bad. Ken-chan, no. Oh no.
What the hell, Akachi? Did you think you could use all the confusion to...
Taking advantage of a woman whilst pretending to assist her is truly disgraceful. Strive and conquer, indeed.
Do?
Don't say such licentious things.
Akachi jumped away as if he had been smacked by an invisible force.
I had no intention to. I mean...
Yes, Akachi? I was somewhat shaken by the whole experience, but by the looks of it, not nearly to the same degree he was.
My most sincere apologies. What I did was beyond depraved. I still have much to learn. Please, excuse me.
With that, he was gone before I could tell him it was all right.
Hold it! Akachi!
I expected better from him. There was no reason to lose his composure over something so asinine.
It's a bit more delicate than that. He's never so much as held hands with a girl, so that must have been quite a shock to the system.
A shock is putting it mildly.
Still, touching her chest by accident like that is just not on.
Look, don't be jealous just because he got there before you did, Watson. Watson, would it trouble you if I asked that you not shout such things? I must confess to some embarrassment.
I didn't mean to, Emily.
I can't apologize enough. All of this came about because of my clumsiness.
You totally did it on purpose.
That point was never up for debate.
I hope you'll forgive him, Emily. He has his flaws, his stubbornness for one, so he has his good and bad days.
Kobayashi puffed out his cheeks and sighed.
But I'll vouch for his character time and time again. He's a good man, I swear on my life.
Oh, I know he's a good man. All this came about because he genuinely tried to help me. The results may have been unexpected, but his heart was in the right place, and I was grateful.
You're too kind. Try and make friends with him, all right? I'll bet that he wants the same.
Kobayashi then left the classroom in pursuit of Akachi. Hi, Jack.
Do you have to pick the seat next to mine for all your jolly talk?
Oops! Jack! I didn't know you were awake.
Even I can't sleep through all that. Ugh. No need to make a fuss over something so small.
I wouldn't call them small. I don't think that's what he meant, Emily. instinctively looked down at my chest. Oh, the boob episode. It's always my favorite. Perhaps they weren't the most developed in the country, but they weren't disappointing by any means, if I do say so myself. Oh no, these poor boys.
I wasn't talking about that.
Ah! Yes! A typical response that rang ever true to his character. I dare say even Akachi couldn't change his ways.